Making the transition from your office to your home can be challenging because there's usually less workspace, you're working with unfamiliar equipment, and there are fewer adjustments than can be made, making you more susceptible to discomfort in your muscles and joints. This video will give you a good strategy guide on how to set up your workstation at home and follow the basic ergonomic principles to allow you to work in a comfortable position while reducing the risk of developing soreness. My name is Ryan Duick from IPM Occupational Therapy, and I'm just going to give you a brief strategy guide for setting up your workstation at home. I've been getting a lot of questions lately about setting up because this video is being recorded in COVID-19 time, and we're all in isolation, and some of us have made that transition from the office environment to the home environment fairly quickly, and it can be challenging to figure out how to set up. So the first thing we want to do for any kind of workstation setup, regardless of where we're working, is follow some basic ergonomic principles. The first is just to use your elbow as a reference for height. So the keyboard and mouse should be about elbow level or slightly below. That's the main component that we look at when we're looking at someone's workstation. So if the keyboard and mouse is too high, we get shoulder elevation. If it's too low, then we get wrist extension. And those kinds of postures and positions take us out of what's called a neutral posture. So a neutral posture is one where the joint is in the least amount of stress. And a neutral posture for the elbow, for example, is at 90 degrees. For the wrist, it's a straight wrist. And when you bend the wrist one way or another or deviate it, that's considered to be out of neutral. So we want to make sure we're using those basic principles for establishing height. Making sure we're square to the work, so facing it directly, making sure the monitor is not off to one side and the keyboard directly in front of us. That can create neck issues. We want to minimize pinch forces. For example, if you're using a travel mouse for your main mouse at home, that might lead to more pinching or gripping, especially if you're a taller person or someone with bigger hands. So just remember to try and be aware of those pinch forces, making sure we're taking our micro breaks, making sure that we're alternating positions and realizing there is no perfect posture or position. So just following those basic principles can be really useful. And now I want to just go through, say, my workstation, for example, and go through some basic principles of what I did for making sure I was set up okay. So the first thing we want to look at is the work location. Height is extremely important when we're dealing with computer work, because like I said, if we're too high or too low, that can take us out of neutral and cause more muscle activity. Ideally, we want a desk or table that's around 27 to 29 inches high. So the desk that looks the most professional or desk-like may actually not be the one that's a good height for you. So have a look around. Maybe it's a kid's homework table. Maybe it's a card table, something like that. Just take a tape measure and measure it up. So this height here of this desk that I found is about 28 inches high. So a decent height anyways for that. I find kitchen tables can be a little bit higher, around 30 to 31 inches high, and that's going to be challenging for a lot of people. So once we have a desk established, we want to make sure our location allows us to concentrate and allow us to do some scheduling or video conferencing. I know that's challenging when you have children running around or pets running around, but ideally that's what we want to look at. So once we have our work location figured out, then we want to find a chair. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a really fancy ergonomic chair, but you do need one with some back support, and ideally one that's going to give you the right height for working at your desk or table. So just keep in mind that the chair that matches the desk or the chair that matches the table decoratively isn't necessarily the right chair for you. Once you have your chair and your desk established, you can determine if that chair is going to bring you to a height that's going to be as close to elbow level as possible. If you find you're still sitting a little bit too low, you can use what's called a um, sit back cushion. This is from Obis Form. So this will raise you up a little bit higher if you need to. And it also serves as a lumbar support. So you can put it, you can put it right in the back of your chair and give you a little bit more back support. So this is a cushion that I'll recommend quite a bit to, allow someone to raise their work surface or raise themselves up to their work surface or give themselves a little bit of back support. So once you have that established, you can make chair adjustments. I have an adjustable chair, so I can raise or lower mine. I won't get into all of the adjustments just because everybody has a different chair. You can go to my website at ipmot.ca and check out the blog for just some basic strategies for adjusting your chair. So once you have that established, then we look at our monitor and determine first if we're using a desktop or a laptop. If we're using a desktop monitor and the monitor adjusts, we want the top of the monitor at about eye level. That is the recommendation, because when we look at something, we don't look straight ahead. We look at a downward angle of about 15 degrees. So we want the top of the monitor at eye level to accommodate our gaze angle. And monitor distance is another question I get asked a fair bit. The general guideline is arm's length away, but because of the technology in monitors and size of various monitors, that can change a lot. So basically you want a monitor distance where you can see everything comfortably without extending your neck or protruding your neck forward. And at the same time, if it's too close and you're rotating your neck a lot, then that's probably a little bit too close. So use the arm's length as a guide and make sure you can see the monitor comfortably. If you're using the laptop as your main setup, then try and use it as your primary monitor and use an external mouse and keyboard instead of using the laptop mouse and keyboard, because we know that laptops can create more shoulder flexion and neck protrusion. So you can put your laptop on a stand to raise it up a little bit. There's other stands as well that will angle the laptop monitor and raise it up to about eye level. One thing to note is that when you're using a keyboard, if you don't need to use the number pad, try and use a keyboard that doesn't have a number pad with it, like this one. And what that does is it prevents you from rotating your shoulder and reaching when you're using the mouse. One of the most important things you can do is move around. It doesn't matter how well we're set up here. If we're not moving and taking micro breaks, then we're going to put too much stress on our body parts. I usually recommend a 30-second break every 20 minutes or a 3 to 4 minute break every hour. And that's something you can incorporate by using a timer fairly easily. Basically, the less optimal your workstation is set up, the more you want to move around. And one of the things about laptops is, although they create awkward postures and positions, they're very versatile. So don't be afraid to take your laptop, go to the couch and lean back and use it like that for a while, and then switch back to your desk. Or you can put it on a countertop and raise it up with books or kitchen equipment or whatever, making sure you're using your elbow as a reference point. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can contact Ryan Duick at ipmot.ca or visit ipmot.ca for further information.